Hello YouTube. I have told you about the mysteries and secrets of Russia and Eurasia and long lost civilizations and UFO encounters, underwater humanoids and cryptozoology around the world. But today I'll talk about a most interesting culinary phenomenon in Russia and neighboring lands. Be prepared to be amazed. Pel'Meni, as we generally refer to dumplings in Russia, are considered one of the most important traditional, folk, popular dishes. Pel'Meni, it is rumored, originated from Siberia. Today we're used to buying ready-made products, but in the main dumpling regions of Russia, the cooking process is a ritual, and everyone has their own ideas about what dumplings should be. I will instruct you how to taste the Sublime Pel'Meni outside the Russian borders and where to get them. Well, not long ago, Russian reporters talked to residents and restaurateurs of Siberia, the Ural Mountains, and Udmurtia, and found out what is the difference between their dumplings from others. Just as a reference, Udmurtia, or the Udmurt Republic, is a federal subject of Russia, a republic in Eastern Europe within the Volga Federal District. Its capital is the city of Izhevsk. Many residents of Siberia are sure that dumplings are a native Siberian dish and that only the Siberians know how to cook them properly. I say humbug, but let's hear them out. Denis Ivanov, the founder of a group of restaurants in Moscow and Novosibirsk, confirms that many Siberians really think so, but in his opinion this is not the case. When you come to St. Petersburg, Moscow, Kaliningrad, Sochi, Vladivostok, you see the Siberian dumplings on the menu quite a lot, much more often than the Ural dumplings, Ural Pel'Meni, or Chinese dumplings, or any others. Based on this, you make a conclusion, he says. There is no one true recipe for Siberian dumplings. Evgeny Kuznetsov, the chef of a Siberian restaurant in Moscow, explained this by saying that dumplings are a traditional dish and clarifies that all recipes for Pel'Meni have some common idea. The chef himself admits that he complements the recipe based on the general idea of the dish and always strives for the ideal, as it should be. According to Denis Ivanov, the main difference between Siberian dumplings from Russia and Ural dumplings is their shape. I travel a lot all over the country and always order Pel'Meni. There is nowhere more beautiful than Siberian ones. I'm talking about home and restaurant, which we do in Novosibirsk, just like home. He says, Siberians make Pel'Meni for the future use. This, according to Ivanov, is their whole point. This is harvesting, freezing, this is food in reserve. That's how they were invented, as a way to survive the winter. He says, shaping or molding of dumplings is a process in Siberia in which the whole family participates. First they buy meat for minced or ground meat and then grind it for a long time. Then knead and roll the dough, cut out circles and make dumplings all together for a long time. Joint work. Then they put it out on the porch if in the village, or on the balcony if in the city. And the winters in Siberia are such that here you have a shock freeze. And so then they hung outside the windows in a grid, gradually moving into the freezer. And from there they slowly eat up until it was time to cook the next batch. The restaurateur recalls. He suggests that Pel'Meni need to be sent to boiling water in a frozen state so that the dough is elastic and the minced meat is juicy. Minced or ground meat for Siberian Pel'Meni is made from 3 or 4 types of meat, generally pork, beef, lamb, and game. But I know in remote Siberian towns and villages, bear meat black grouse and venison were used too. Today we buy pelmeni or dumplings in the store, eat and do not guess how old and diverse this dish was in the past. A rare festive feast in Siberia does without the pelmeni or the local northern fish. At least there will be a plate with lightly salted amul or grayling on the table. Almost every family has its own recipes of traditional Siberian dishes, but a significant part of the Siberian culinary heritage has been lost today. Pelmeni replaced the first, second, and even the dessert for Siberians. You can read about this in Russian writer Gelyarovsky's series of essays, Moscow and Muscovites. He describes how 10 of the richest Siberian gold miners arranged a dinner in Moscow consisting exclusively of pelmeni with different fillings. And for sweets, there were dumplings with fruit cooked in pink champagne, and that's how they served it. In total, 2,500 dumplings were eaten at that occasion. For real Siberian dumplings, at least 4 types of meat are required, according to the author of several books on the history of Siberian cuisine, Igor Shein. First of all, we need game. Moreover, both feathered and edible duck, goose, grouse, and with it, venison or elk meat. Since deer or elk meat is quite dry, you need to add something fatter to it, pork or lamb, and finally beef. Minced meat is made from all this, which is seasoned with onions, salt, and pepper. The dough for traditional Siberian dumplings was also kneaded in a special way, not with water, but with tea. Why was it necessary? Igor Shein continues his story. The fact is that the dumplings were molded or shaped in winter, when they could be stored in the cold. Special rare linen bags were used for this purpose. In them, the dumplings gradually dried out, lost moisture, the fat in the minced meat was oxidized, and the taste of the meat accordingly deteriorated. And tea contains antioxidants that slow down the process of fat oxidation and help preserve the taste of meat in its original form. Another difference from modern recipe is that the dumplings, pelmeni, were fried in butter before freezing, and instead of cooking them later, they were simply brewed with boiling water and kept under the lid for a few minutes. He himself cooks dumplings in this way, and he's amazed by the richness of their taste. Well, Siberian merchants of the old empire have come up with their own version of fast food. Such food was a necessity for them. After all, when inspecting their mines, sawmills, and distilleries, they traveled hundreds of miles from home. They were often forced to have lunch in an open field, where the distance to the nearest dwelling was measured by days of travel. You don't know how big Siberia is, how beautiful, how interesting, and beguiling, and dangerous too sometimes. Anyway, the traditional cuisine of Siberia was clearly divided into home and road, emphasizes Igor Shein. Pelmeni are a classic example of road food. Boiled water, and in a few minutes a full meal is ready. Ivanov explains that Siberia is the territory of hunters, so game is a frequent ingredient of Siberian pelmeni. Dumplings with fish are also popular, with sturgeon, sometimes with Siberian pike, which is much tastier than the one to the west of the Urals. And dumplings with Siberian whitefish are also very good, according to Denis Ivanov. Well, in Siberia, crushed ice is added to minced meat for dumplings. Evgeny Kuznetsov explains that this ingredient is needed so that the filling is slightly loose and juicy. Ice melts, turns into water, and according to the chef, The same technique is used for cooking sausages and sometimes cutlets. In addition to meat, raw onions are often added to the dough for Siberian dumplings. Kuznetsov himself uses caramelized ones, which according to him gives the filling the right density and a light sweet tint, and the onion as such really is not felt in the pelmeni. The main difference between Siberian dumplings from others, according to Alexander Kucherov, the chef of a well-known restaurant in Krasnoyarsk, are historical factors: lifestyle, climate, and of course the passion of Siberians for hunting. In his opinion, there must be game in authentic Siberian pelmeni. Not only meat from the outside should go into the minced meat, but also what we managed to obtain in the taiga, he's convinced. Taiga refers to boreal forests covering countless kilometers and territories of Siberian land. And he adds that it can be not only meat that goes into the pelmeni. If we talk about the truly Siberian dumplings, surely you can find some dried or frozen berries in them, the chef believes. Of course, I will add edible mushrooms too. In addition, there should be a lot of fat in real Siberian dumplings. In addition to the meat that my grandfather brought from hunting, fat was also added to the minced meat in the form of lard, said Kucherov. And of course, crushed ice. Firstly, in order for the dumplings to turn out softer, and when cooking, broth was formed in them. And secondly, so that the meat does not spoil, because pelmeni in Siberia are not prepared for the one-sitting meal. No, for more than that. And in Western Siberia, as in Western Siberia, in the eastern part, molding dumplings is an occupation for the whole family. In my childhood, the family modeling or shaping of dumplings was a whole ritual. We sat down at a huge round table in the kitchen. Grandma took out a whole basin of dough, several basins of ground meat, and it began. We could spend the whole day doing this, the chef recalls. At the same time, the dumplings themselves had to be small, about 2.5 centimeters in diameter, but there should be a lot of them. According to Alexander Mitrakov, founder of a group of restaurant holding in Siberia, delicious and tasteless dumplings are everywhere, and Siberia is no exception. Well, the Siberian dumplings brand is generally unclear where it came from, he argues. Most likely this is a marketing company, this is what they call their dumplings. Siberia, naturally they're tasteless according to him. According to Nitrakov, store-bought dumplings are despised in Siberia. I'm probably the most important lover of pelmeni in Siberia, but I just cannot stomach the store purchased ones. They're always disgusting, he admits. The restaurateur is sure that the unpleasant taste of the store-bought dumplings is due to onions in minced meat. What is done with onions after deep freezing? Well, it gives an unpleasant taste. If you make dumplings with onions, they cannot be frozen, he is sure. According to him, the onion in minced meat does not make the dumplings more juicy, only reduces the cost of production of the product. Well, there is no classic recipe for Siberian dumplings. Siberian pelmeni are the dumplings that are made in Siberia, Mitrakov believes. Another thing is serving. The restaurateur recognizes only pelmeni with broth meat. If they're meat dumplings, and fish if dumplings are with fish. So that's the broth that should be used. I don't understand how people eat dumplings without broth. Okay, fried but boiled pelmeni without broth is very strange. It's like eating pizza with a knife and a fork, he believes. Now, residents of the Ural mountains are sure that pelmeni were invented in their region. Vladimir Alkenitsky, a chef and member of the Association of Chefs of Authentic Ural Cuisine, believes that the pelmeni came to us from Asia. There are dumplings and their varieties in many countries and regions, and everyone believes that they came up with the idea of wrapping the filling in dough. These are hinkali, dim sums, buzos, manti, and ravioli, he argues. At the same time, the chef himself considers the Ural dumplings to be the most correct. Classic Ural dumplings, or pelmeni, according to him, are prepared from 3 types of meat: pork, beef, and lamb. The chef treats good store dumplings well, those that are purchased in store. Sometimes when I don't have time or I'm too lazy to cook myself, I buy them, but I really do so, he added. In the Urals, the dumplings with vinegar are often served, but they're usually eaten with sour cream and butter. By the way, we also use vinegar when eating pelmeni in Ukraine. Very delicious. Vladimir Alkenitsky shared a recipe for real Ural dumplings. Listen to this. To prepare the dough, you will need 700 grams of flour, 10 grams of salt, 1 egg, 300 milligrams of water, 15 grams of sour cream. To prepare the filling, 300 grams of beef, 100 grams of lamb, 500 grams of pork, 100 grams of dried onion, 1 egg, 4 grams of ground pepper, 8 grams of salt. By the way, I also heard of venison pelmeni to add to the meat variety. Of course, if your religion does not permit eating pork, beef, beef and lamb will do fine. You can stick to that. Veal is the variety I like the most personally of the pelmeni kind. But venison, nobody is going to argue against it, or black grouse and ducks from Siberia. Anyway, to prepare the dough, mix flour with salt and egg, add egg, sour cream, and some water. Knead the dough, and if necessary, add the remaining water. Knead thoroughly again and put it in the refrigerator for about an hour. Prepare the filling. Pass the meat, or grind the meat through a meat grinder. Add finely chopped sauteed onion, raw egg, salt, and pepper. Mix, work on it, and then put the minced meat in the refrigerator. Roll out the juicy part, put the minced meat. It is important that there is as much dough as the filling, and make pelmeni of a classic shape. The chef advises to freeze the finished dumplings immediately, or cook them by throwing them into boiling salted water with the addition of bay leaves. Cook the pelmeni for 5 minutes after boiling. Serve with sour cream, horseradish, or other sauce to taste. I like Alkenitsky's recipes. And if anybody needs more detail, I can always write them down in the message section of my channel, and maybe put in another interesting recipe. Anyway, for me, I recommend adding cranberries, cowberries, and various jams on the side, like the sea buckthorn or hawthorn, or of course cowberry jam. In Udmurtia, dumplings, pelmeni, are considered their traditional dish. Residents of the region are sure that the homeland of dumplings is here in Izhevsk, the capital of Udmurtia. Udmurts love pelmeni so much that every year a holiday is organized in the region, the Dumpling Day, or Day of the Pelmeni, during which various competitions are held, and the winner is awarded an annual supply of dumplings. There is also a monument to Pelmeni in Izhevsk, and there are a lot of chocolate dumplings in souvenir shops. It is believed that even this dish acquired its name based on the words of the Udmurt language from Pel'Meni, which literally means bread ear. Pel is ear, and yan is bread. The tradition of making dumplings is passed down from generation to generation. This dish has always accompanied special occasions and was considered festive and has been prepared for centuries. Galina, a resident of Ijevsk, explains that the filling for classic Udmurt Pel'Meni differs from Siberian or the Ural ones. Firstly, it was not minced meat, but chopped meat. It was chopped in a wooden trough with a hole into small, very small pieces. Secondly, dumplings were often cooked with salted meat. It was a natural way to preserve the product in the absence of refrigerators, according to Galina. Her parents already used minced meat for the filling, but in no case store-purchased one. Pork and beef were taken for its preparation, and the proportions of pork should have been greater. So the dumplings turn out fatter and juicier, and the broth is richer. And there must be a lot of fresh onions for juiciness, says Galina. There was another culinary clever tip that her ancestors used. In our family, the edge of the Pel'Meni was not sealed so that the rich broth got there during cooking, she shared. Another feature of Udmurt dumplings, according to her, is that they can be of different shapes. In our family, they always make so-called written dumplings. The edge of each is not sealed, but also written in a special way. It looks like a crest. I think she means shaped in a different way, said Yulia. She admits that some residents of the region do not recognize Pel'Meni in their most popular form when the tips are connected to each other. Well, they call them goat munki. I will not even contemplate what she exactly refers to. And Galina also added, Mom poured flour on the cutting board in the form of a slide, made a notch in the middle. It turned out to be a kind of volcano flour. There she broke an egg, poured water, and put salt. Gently mixed with a knife, gradually adding flour from the edges, and then kneaded with her hands for a long time. Grandma used to say that the longer we knead the dough, the softer and more elastic it will be, and the dumplings will taste better. In Udmurtia, there is another tradition to make a happy dumpling. Since Pel'Meni were always prepared on holidays and with guests, there were a lot of them, and so among several dozen dumplings, we molded one with dough. It was considered a good omen to find such a dumpling on your plate. These Russian Pel'Meni are traditional dumplings, stuffed with juicy ground meat, onions, and simple seasoning. Most people serve them on a cold winter's day with sour cream or melted butter and vinegar. But trust me, you can eat Pel'Meni also on a warm day. They won't taste any worse from that. There are more unusual varieties of Pel'Meni or dumplings, and I like them. Let me list some, but not all, or the video will last a few hours. For example, the byoriki. Byoriki is a traditional dish of Kalmyk cuisine with lamb. Kalmykia is the Russian Buddhist Republic. The dough for byorik is kneaded from premium flour, water, eggs, and salt is added. While it is infused, proceed to the preparations of the filling. At the same time, the meat is chopped into small pieces with a knife and not put through a meat grinder. Finely chopped bacon and onions, spices, and herbs are added to the minced meat. Therefore, the dish turns out to be juicy and fragrant. The dough is rolled into round cakes and minced meat is placed in the middle of each. Boil the byoriki in boiling salt water and serve them with butter. Well, then there are the vareniki or Varanaki in Ukrainian. Ukrainian dumplings differ from Russian dumplings in shape as well as in the fact that filling in them is already made. A varenik is a small crescent board made of unleavened, sometimes yeast, dough, and milk or kefir, with intricately pinched edges. Inside there may be both meat or fish, as well as cabbage, potatoes, cottage cheese, mushrooms, berries like cherries, really divine food, those cherry vareniki. Thus dumplings can act both as a main dish and as dessert. There are also the so-called lazy dumplings, or lazy vareniki. These are broiled pieces of dough in which cottage cheese has already been mixed. Serve them with sour cream and butter. They are a traditional Slavic dish, but most often found in Ukrainian cuisine. Most delicious. The dough can be different. Dumplings on kefir and eggs are tender and lush. To make the dish lean, the dough is kneaded with water and flour, salted and rolled thinly. As a filling, chopped meat, potatoes, cabbage, mushrooms, cottage cheese, or berries are most often used. So, memories. Anyway, we cannot forget gurza, a dish of Azerbaijani cuisine. Its name is due to the fact that when molding or shaping a dumpling, a small hole is left, and when biting it, a sound resembling the hissing of a snake is made. As a filling, mutton or ground beef is usually used. The meat is mixed with onions in equal proportions. Add salt, pepper, and matsun or unsweetened yogurt. The filling is obtained with sourness. Gurza is served with oil, vinegar, and sour cream. Dushbara is one of the most delicious dishes of Azerbaijani cuisine. It's a spicy soup of dumplings. From a very thin dough, dumplings are molded half the size of ordinary ones. First they are boiled in salt water and then in meat or chicken broth. During cooking, a lot of spices, quarters of onions and garlic are added to the dushbar. Kreplach is a traditional Jewish festive dish. These dumplings are practically no different from the Siberian ones, except that pork is never added to them. I do not recall seeing them in Ukraine during the Soviet times, but I am sure they were made in Eastern Europe and the old Russian Empire. Traditionally, cabbage or mashed potatoes are put in Jewish dumplings. Sometimes the kreplach is rolled up in the shape of an ear, and sometimes they give the appearance of a triangle. Most often kreplach is cooked in chicken, less often in vegetable broth. Dishes can also be served fried. Kundyumi are an old Russian dish. This is a kind of dumplings or pel'meni stuffed with mushrooms and cereals. There's a type of them that kundyum appeared as a replacement for pel'meni on the Lenten monastic table. That's what the monks ate when they couldn't eat meat. But the very name of the dish is of Turkic origin and means wheat. The dough of the kundyumi is special. It is a combination of custard and extract dough and is prepared in vegetable oil. The method of cooking kundyumi is also quite unusual. First, they're baked in the oven and then they're stewed in mushroom broth. This must be so delicious. Now, boraki is a dish of Armenian cuisine on a thin dough stuffed with lamb or ground meat. Its peculiarity is that the minced meat is pre-fried and then put into tubes of dough. They are sealed only from the bottom and placed in a saucepan vertically. Until ready, the boraki are not cooked, but slightly fried. The dish is served with herbs, vegetables, or gravy based on matsun. It's a fermented milk drink. Herbs and garlic, of course. Now, listen to this one. Cursive. Dagestan dumplings. It's part of Russia in the Caucasus Mountains, in the Kafkas Mountains. They're cooked with meat and vegetables, just like ordinary dumplings. Caucasus Mountains housewives often mix different types of meat. They use mutton, beef, or chicken minced meat, to which salt, pepper, and a little milk are added. But onions and eggs filling in Dagestan is preferred to cabbage, and the main part of such filling is onion. Manti is a special kind of dumplings from Central Asia. Manti are larger than dumplings and have an unusual shape. The filling for them is prepared from chopped lamb, horse meat, or beef. Pieces of fat and onions are also added. Manti are often stuffed with seasonal vegetables, such as carrots or pumpkins. The dish is served with sour cream and fresh herbs. And now hinkali, a national dish of Georgian cuisine with meat filling. Minced meat is prepared in advance so that the dough does not dry. The meat for the filling is seasoned with spices. A lot of onions and garlic are added. The dough is kneaded from flour, salt, and a small amount of water, so that it turns out to be quite dense and tight. Traditionally, Georgian housewives shape hinkali in such a way that a small tail of dough turns out at the top. The molded dumplings are boiled in salt water. So people in Georgia, it's a country in Caucasus Mountains area, beautiful land. Well, they eat hinkali with their hands, holding out onto the tail, which they then throw away because they don't need it. So all of those countries are located in beautiful areas throughout the former Soviet Union, Russian Empire, and so forth. Now their own lands, beautiful lands with excellent cuisine. And if you ever travel in the area, you will like it all, be it Azerbaijani, Armenian, Georgian. My preference is Georgian, but I would love to try all of them. Life is good when you try all of them. I personally love the Ukrainian and Russian varieties and the Manti, and of course Georgian. But all the ones I described are delicious. But then there is the young generation. Evgeny Vikentiev prepares avant-garde Russian cuisine at a fish deli restaurant overlooking the Red Square. He's a very hip young chef in Moscow who prepares pel'meni with smoked pike and foie gras with mushroom broth. So he's smart. He took something from the old monks and something from Siberia. And I'm sure those pel'meni are not very big, but must be very delicious. Well, I have to tell you that the pel'meni sold in Russian stores in the United States, Canada, France, Israel, Italy, Japan, and other countries are not bad, and will give you a good introduction to one of the tastiest Russian dish. Of course, Russian, Ukrainian, Central Asian, and Georgian restaurants abroad and others usually serve pel'meni, Varanaki, Manti, and hinkali. So start your culinary adventure. It's an amazing phenomenon, just as the other ones I'm telling you about, but a more satisfying and filling one. And may I suggest as the background music that you listen to the songs that are listed in the description to this video. I think they set the mood and positive outlook on life. And in the future, among other videos, I'll bring you interesting ones about unusual cuisines of Eurasia and some of the words of wisdom that I've heard from people from all over Eurasia. Some of the words that may help others in life. Thank you for listening to my video. If you can support my research, please find the links in the description to this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please tell others.